Hello, hello. I know I'm early. I set this for 5:30, but I've literally been in go mode all afternoon. And so while I am in go mode, I don't have the chance to take a break and rest and then get tired and be like, I don't want to do that. We're just gonna go. So, hello and welcome. Sorry for being early. So I hate pre-scheduling these things because I usually wind up coming earlier or later. Okay, Leviticus 25. What I'm going to do is start with a read through of this chapter. Hi, Lappy. Have I seen you before? Have I seen your name before? I should. I'm not sure if I have or not, but hello and welcome. It's nice to have you here. And also, I'm glad that you're here. So, can you hear me? I guess I should. Oh, okay. Nice to see you. I should check my volume while I'm here. Perfect. I love, 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 love. Okay, I'm turning it up a little bit. I love my new job, but holy cow, am I way busier than I ever was at my old job. Part of that is learning, but part of it is just the nature of the work. I am just, it's why I'm usually just tired because I am like in go mode constantly. But I adore the work that I do. So it's very fun, very fun. Okay, so what I want to do before we even get into this is kind of set the stage for why I'm going to talk about this, but also to make sure that we're not cherry picking certain things. There is a great, great, great propensity to just pick out certain verses that have to do with the concept at hand or that are interesting or that have like keywords and phrases. And that's generally not a good idea. So, what we're going to do, because there is so much confusion, contention, discussion around Leviticus 25, I am literally going to read the whole chapter. And I said in the title here, participation, because what I wanted to have you guys do, if you want, as I'm reading through this, I'm literally just going to do a read through and I have not done any of, well, I mean, some of this I've talked about before, so it'll be old hat, but I've never sat down here and read through the whole chapter and picked out keywords and phrases to do word studies with. So what I'm going to do as I read through is I'm just going to jot down things that I want to do word studies on and show you where these things, I have a couple in my mind, and show you where these things present in other passages of the Bible, either in the Old Testament or in the New, for additional context. This chapter is because it is talking about the Jubilee year. People, I mean, it's going to set the stage for how you even figure out what the Jubilee year is. This is one of the biggest problems, is that people try to identify Jubilee years based on what events they think should happen in the Jubilee year. I have seen recently, and I think that this person brought this idea to my channel once upon a time, and I was like, this is the opposite of what intentional Bible study is. Intentional Bible study says this is what the starting point is, and this is how you count. And so if we're looking at events or any event specifically that happens in a Jubilee year, you can't just say, well, it makes more sense if it's attached to that. People do this. This is what boggles my mind. It doesn't matter if you think it makes more sense if it was attached to that. And what I'm saying is the Jubilee year is attached to the building of Ezekiel's temple, which starts, it's the tribulation temple. It's the temple in the 70th week. So it doesn't really matter if somebody thinks that the second coming would be better tied to the Jubilee year. That's not what the Bible says. And so I don't mean to be like condescending or anything like that, but if the Bible says it's one way, it doesn't really matter if you think it should be written a different way. It wasn't. And so our job is to make peace with what it does say, not to say, well, it should be this. like your own my own ideas are irrelevant if they don't match with the text. And so what Leviticus 25 does is it says, okay, there's a command. When this command is fulfilled or when this event is fulfilled, then there's a count and there's a way in which to count. And then there's things that are tied to that count in those years in the future, which helps you validate your count is correct. This is one of the big things. And I'm just identifying things that I've heard that people kind of get wacky about. The 49 versus 50. Okay. I have done lots of videos in the last, well, they're probably back from February, March, about how the count is supposed to go. Is it by 49s or by 50s? If it's in the 50th year, you have to count the current year, and it would be plus 49. So current year is year 1 plus 49 to get to the 50th. It's not counting by 50s because then you always have to count the year that you're in as year 1. So if you add or subtract 50, you're getting 51. So I went through all of this and I showed you how there are other data points in the Bible that happen in Jubilee years. And the only way that works is if you count by 49s, which is the command to do. So the Bible is very specific about when to start, how to count, and then how many to count. And then when you're talking about that, there's other types and shadows and other numbers and things like that in the Bible. So we're not going to discuss all of it in Leviticus 25. But there's a specific methodology, and it's supposed to point you to other things that are meaningful and to cross-check itself, to double-check itself. The Bible will always tell you what it means, and then it will substantiate itself. And truly, I think what we do is we just don't read enough of it. Or we read one or two things and we think we have the answer, don't double-check it, and then it winds up being wrong. We always have cross-checks, 100% of the time. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word will be established. And the way that you can validate that it's plus or minus 49 and not 50 is by the other events that occur in Jubilee years plotting on the timeline. That's your double check system. So again, it's not that the answers aren't available. It's that I think that people simply stop prematurely before they have all of the answers in order to make better informed decisions. So this is kind of setting the stage for, like I said, some of what we're going to discuss, and I'm going to revisit some of these concepts. For those of you who have been here for a hot minute, this is not new. For those of you who have not been here for a hot minute, this may be new. Leviticus 25:1. The Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. And he's going to describe what that Sabbath is. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you, for thee, and for thy servant, and for thy maid, and for thy hired servant, and thy stranger that sojourneth with thee, and for thy cattle, and for thy beasts that are in thy land, shall all the increase thereof be meat. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee. 7 times 7 years, the space of 7 Sabbaths of the year shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement, you shall make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. So what we're going to do, I'm going to stop here for a second, and I'm going to note things that I'm going to come back and discuss. First and foremost is the starting point. When ye shall come into your land, okay? Then the land shall keep a Sabbath. 6 years, sow thy field, prune thy vineyard, gather in the fruits thereof. 7th year is a year of rest, number 7 sevens. Okay, we're to that point. And now there's this verse here, Leviticus 25:9. We'll come back to that. We will come back to that. There is actually a separate video in my most important channel info playlist that discusses exactly what we're going to get to in this video. However, if you want a more condensed version and a more immediate answer to that, go check that video out. You should be able to identify it by its name. Verse 10, and ye shall hallow the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto the inhabitants thereof. So we're going to discuss the concept of liberty. It shall be a jubilee unto you. Ye shall return every man unto his possession. Ye shall return every man unto his family. A jubilee shall that 50th year be unto you. Ye shall not sow, neither reap that which groweth of itself in it, nor gather the grapes in it of thy vine undressed. Hi, everybody. Hi, Paul. Hi, Riding with Jesus. Hi, Last Days Christians. Nice to see all of you. For it is a jubilee, it shall be holy unto you. You shall eat the increase thereof out of the field. In the year of this jubilee, you shall return every man unto his possession. And if thou sell aught unto thy neighbor, or buyest aught of thy neighbor's hand, you shall not oppress one another. According to the number of years after the jubilee, thou shalt buy of thy neighbor, and according unto the number of years of the fruits, he shall sell unto thee. A lot of this we're not going to go back through, but I'm not going to cherry pick. I'm just going to read the whole chapter. Some of it is actually quite interesting and pertinent to other things that I have discussed, but probably appropriate to revisit. According to the multitude of years, thou shalt increase the price thereof, and according to the fewness of years, thou shalt diminish the price of it. For according to the number of the years of the fruits doth he sell unto thee. Ye shall not therefore oppress one another, but thou shalt fear thy God. I am the Lord your God. Wherefore ye shall do my statutes and keep my judgments and do them, and ye shall dwell in the land in safety. And the land shall yield her fruit, and ye shall eat your fill and dwell therein in safety. And if ye shall say, what shall we eat the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow, neither gather the increase. So this relates to the 7th year is a year of rest. They're not supposed to, let's reread. In the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest thou shalt neither reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is year of rest unto the Lord, under the land rather. So they're asking, okay, well, you've got the 7th year is a Sabbath, and if your 8th year is a Sabbath, what are we supposed to do? Because they're not supposed to reap the land and all that stuff. Or work the land, I suppose. So, if ye shall say, what shall we eat the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow, neither gather our increase. Then I will command my blessing upon you in the 6th year. It'll bring forth fruit for 3 years. So, in the 6th year, it'll bring forth fruit for the 7th and the 8th. And then into the 9th, they would start again. The land shall not be sold forever. Nope, I skipped. You shall sow the 8th year, which is the Jubilee year. And yet eat of the old fruit in the 9th year until the fruits come in, you shall eat of the old store. So this is the question that they have, is that there's multiple years consecutively that they're not supposed to do these things for the land. Then what are they supposed to do? Well, God's going to make it produce for them for that 3rd year so that they are not without. The land shall not be sold forever. For the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the land of your possession ye shall grant a redemption for the land. If thy brother be waxen poor and hath sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. And if the man have none to redeem it, and himself be able to redeem it, then let him count the years of sale thereof, and restore the overplus unto the man to whom he sold it, that he may return unto his possession. But if he be not able to restore it to him, then that which is sold shall remain in the hand of him that hath bought it until the year of Jubilee, and in the Jubilee it shall go out, he shall return unto his possession. So it's return to rightful ownership. And this is actually a fascinating concept when we get into the New Testament. So I'll do some word studies and show you how that reappears. But restoration to rightful ownership, very, very cool concept. And if the man sell a dwelling house in a walled city, then he may redeem it within a whole year. After it is sold within a full year, he may redeem it. And if it be not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house that is in the walled city shall be established forever to him that bought it throughout his generations. It shall not go out in the Jubilee. But the houses of the villages which have no wall round about them shall be counted as the fields of the country. They may be redeemed, and they shall go out in the Jubilee. Notwithstanding the cities of the Levites and the houses of the cities of their possession may the Levites redeem at any time. And if a man purchase of the Levites, then the house that was sold in the city of his possession shall go out in the year of Jubilee, for the houses of the cities of the Levites are in the possession among the children of Israel. But the field of the suburbs of their cities may not be sold, for it is their perpetual possession. And if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Take thou no usury of him or increase, but fear thy God, and that thy brother may live with thee. Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury or interest, nor lend him the victuals for increase. I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. And if thy brother that dwelleth by thee be waxen poor, and be sold unto thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve as a bondservant, but as a hired servant, and as a sojourner he shall be with thee, and thou shalt and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee. And then he shall depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his fathers shall he return. For they are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondmen. Thou shalt not rule over him with rigor, but shall fear thy God. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you, and of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall be your possession. And you shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, and inherit them for a possession. My eyes are going cross. Staring at too much computer screen today. My eyes are tired. Anyway, you shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your bondmen forever, but over your brethren, the children of Israel, you shall not rule over another with rigor. And if a sojourner or stranger wax rich by thee, and thy brother that dwelleth by him wax poor, and sell himself unto the stranger or sojourner by thee, or to the stock of thy stranger's family, after that he is sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brethren may redeem him, either his uncle or his uncle's son may redeem him, or any that is nigh of kin. So verse 49. This is the kin. Uh-oh. I froze. This is the kinsman redeemer. This is the idea of the kinsman redeemer. This is what the whole book of Ruth is about. Hi, Colette. Hi, Megan. Nice to see both of you. So Leviticus 25. I know we're kind of getting like, I'm almost done. But this is the idea of the kinsman redeemer. Either his uncle or his uncle's son may redeem him, or any that is nigh of kin unto him of his family may redeem him. Or if he is able, he may redeem himself. Well, no man can redeem himself. We need a kinsman redeemer. That's the whole point of Jesus. He shall reckon with him that bought him from the year that he was sold to him unto the year of Jubilee, and the price of his sale shall be according to the number of years, according to the time of an hired servant shall it be with him. If there be yet many years behind, according unto them, he shall give again the price of his redemption out of the money that he was bought for. And if there remain but few years unto the Jubilee, then he shall count with him, and according unto his years shall he give again the price of his redemption. And as a yearly hired servant shall he be with him, and the other shall not rule with rigor over him in thy sight. And if he be not redeemed in these years, then he shall go out in the year of Jubilee, both he and his children with him. For unto me the children of Israel are servants. They are my servants whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So, the starting point. Leviticus 25:9, the concept of liberty and the kinsman redeemer. Those are the four things that this chapter really brings to the fore. Now, what we need to understand about this is a law given to Israel. This is part of the Mosaic law because it's a statute. It's a statute. It is a command that God gave to Moses to give to the children of Israel. So it does not actually pertain to us in the letter of this chapter. However, in the concept of the chapter and the kinsman redeemer and the book of Ruth, which Ruth was a Gentile and Boaz was a man of Hebrew descent, and he redeemed Ruth. There are concepts that are pertinent, and the whole of the Jubilee year concept is pertinent. You learn that from prophecy. What we should understand fundamentally about this coming from Leviticus, which is a book of the law, and I've taught ad nauseum about this, is that the law was fulfilled. The law, the corporate entity, the cessation through fulfillment of the law came with the death of Christ on the cross. So the old covenant, the Mosaic law, is of no effect. It is the new covenant now. This is part of the old covenant. So you would not go back to Leviticus 25 to say this is still outstanding. Well, the law itself is shut up. So technically, no, it wouldn't be. Where you learn that these concepts are still in play is from prophecy. So you would defer to the prophecy aspect to tell you that these things are still in play. And you would go back to Leviticus 25 to understand the underpinnings of how that works, understanding that there's still prophecies in play. So this is one of the things that we need to differentiate as legal versus prophetic. You don't take your understanding of unfulfilled prophecy from the first 5 books of the Old Testament. You take them from the major and minor prophets or the New Testament, if pertinent. Now, the idea of kinsman redemption is present in Revelation 5, and we'll talk about that. But so you would understand that the kinsman redeemer comes from Ruth, comes from Revelation 5. So that's your tie to prophecy, and the underpinnings of what that means come from Leviticus 25, your nearest kinsman. Let me read that again. Leviticus 25, 49. 48. After that he is sold, he may be redeemed again. One of his brethren may redeem him. So that's your nearest kinsman. So this comes into the whole, we are adopted into Abraham's family. Sons of Abraham. This actually kind of plays into the whole Romans 2 conversation that I had with the chart, where you have the Abrahamic covenant promises. There's 3. The land promise, the natural seed promise, and the spiritual seed promise. So this was given to the natural seed. But part of the new covenant is that there's an expansion as everyone who comes to faith in the spiritual seed gets kingdom. And it's not just the Jews, the natural seed of Abraham redeemed by Jesus, who is a natural seed of Abraham. It's everyone. Jews and Gentiles alike get redeemed by the blood of Christ. He becomes the nearest kinsman, not just to the Jews, but to the Gentiles as well. So this concept is very important. We get the underpinnings from Leviticus, but we get the farther reaching implication and meaningful impact on the Gentiles through other things, specifically in the New Testament. It's the whole concept of Jesus coming, what he did, and what he affords Gentiles through by grace through faith in the finished work. Ephesians 2 talks about this. He broke down the middle wall of partition between Jews and Gentiles and created one, thereby making peace, and invited everyone who believes in him to become an adopted son of Abraham. Galatians 3 and 4 talk about this. So there's a lot of concept that originates from the kinsman redeemer that is built into how that affects Gentiles under new covenant in the New Testament. Yes, it started with Israel, but the redemption part affects everyone through Jesus Christ. So I realize it can get a little bit tricky. Maybe not. Maybe you guys understand I hope you understand the distinction between legal and prophetic. You would not take your understanding of outstanding prophecy from Leviticus. You would take the foundation from Leviticus and understand from the major and minor prophets and from the New Testament that there's outstanding application. There's a huge difference between saying there's parts of the law outstanding to be fulfilled. No, there are absolutely not. But there are prophecies that originate from foundations that were built into the Old Testament law that have application in the future and concept. And so I hope we can separate these things into their buckets. This is not all intended, and this conversation specifically is not a milk of the word concept. I think that there's maybe a thought that every concept in the Bible should be easy to read in the plain text. You know, kind of the folks who are like, show me one verse where it says this. No, that's not how that works. And conceptually speaking, the kinsman redemption is not that. It's a foundation that gets built, understanding that Jubilee year and freedom, liberty, release from bondage, restoration to rightful ownership. That's what these concepts built into the Jubilee year embody. And then you can see those play out in other books of the Bible forthcoming. So there's a foundation laid, but the immediate application from Leviticus 25 is to the children of Israel. And it goes back to the starting point. When ye shall come into your land, then there's this pattern established, 7 sevens, and in the 50th year proclaim Jubilee. And in this Jubilee year, this 50th year, these are all of the things that happen. So the immediate application, the pertinent, prescient application to Leviticus 25 dealt with Israel when they came into their land. But when you tie it into kinsman redemption, there are other far-reaching conceptual things that apply to Gentiles under New Covenant. It's a timeline. It's built into the timeline based on kinsman redemption and how there are outstanding prophecies that relate to that. So I hope we can draw the boundaries where we need to separate legal versus prophetic. Legally, there was one fulfillment of this. And so we're going to start at the starting point. This I guess technically would have been prophetic to the time period because it was still yet future. When Moses got the command from God, when you shall come into your land, it was a prophecy that they were going to come into their land, but it was fulfilled in Joshua 4:19. So that ended the prophetic aspect of this for the immediate implication. It said, when you come into your land, here's the starting point. And then you're going to begin a count that would continue ad infinitum because it's just number 7 sevens, and then the 50th year do this. The 50th year is the first year of the next 7 sevens. So it's not the 50s. It's not the 50s. This is one point of clarification I will make and say that using the Dead Sea Scroll or the Essene calendar that came up earlier this year, one of the taking out of context things that occurred with that was the discussion of Jubilee cycles. There is no such thing as a Jubilee cycle. There's no such that's not in the Bible. I just read the chapter. There's no such thing as a Jubilee cycle. There is a year of Jubilee, which is the 50th year in a cycle. But it's not even a cycle. That's bad terminology. It's bad lingo. So I'm going to if any of you guys use the terminology Jubilee cycle, I would just say that that's not a great idea. Okay, let me pull this up real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm just going to share this. I'm literally just doing this on the fly. So what comes out of my mouth is just what's going to come out of my mouth, and what's on the screen is just going to be what's on the screen. This is not going to be like any high-tech thing. Why is it not? I can't make it bigger. Why can I not make it bigger? Can you guys see that? Hi, Rolled Stone Baker. Can you guys see my It's totally not letting me increase the size. Okay, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be really small. I'm sorry. I'm trying to like enlarge it, but it's not working. So maybe what I'll do is this. What is going on? Sorry, I don't know why it's not. All right, whatever. It's going to be what it's going to be. Yeah, it's small. I don't know why. Usually I can. There. I made it a little bigger. It's like it's not working. I don't know why not. Here, I guess it's increasing a little bit. This is what happens when we do stuff live. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm just going to show you. Obviously, 7 times 7, that would be 49. Nope. Okay, so you've got your first set of 7 years. Gosh, I can't count. This is what happens. I got all messed up because I was like, why won't it work? And now I'm just like, slow my roll. Okay, so we've got 1 through 7. And this would be your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. And this would obviously be year 49. And then in the 50th year, hallow it and proclaim Jubilee. This is what Leviticus 25 called the 8th year and the 9th year. Would be year 1 and year 2 of the second period of 49. I think what happens when we look at periods of 50, I know the joys of technology. Oh, you can't see anything? Oh my goodness. All right. Joys of technology. That's okay. You just didn't see me messing around. Now you can. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. At least I know you guys are paying attention. Okay. So in the yellow, you have 7 periods of 7. What I want to impress upon people is it's not the 50s. When you talk about cycles of 50, you're taking out the integrity of the count, because it's not the 50s that are important, it's the 7s. This is a whole period based on 7s. And the reason why that is critical to note is because we can see, again, that's funny. Why it's critical to note that it is not based on 50s, it is based on 7s, is because Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy borrow from the 7s. So if you're inserting extra years, if you think that the 50th year is a standalone year, or you don't recognize that it's counting by 49s and you're counting by 50s, you probably also might not realize that Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy borrows from this periods of 7, and there is no extra 50th year in there. So this is the double check system, actually, one of them. In addition to understanding that you can identify other Jubilee years on the timeline, specifically the ones I have identified are Ezekiel's vision from Ezekiel 40 verse 1 and Josiah's great Passover, which occurred in the Jubilee year just preceding that, is that Daniel's 70 weeks borrows from these land Sabbaths, these periods of 7. So if you start counting by 50, it's actually you're creating a 51st year rather than a 50th. It's current year, when ye shall come into the land that I shall give you. That's the first year, because they came in 4 days after the year started. Sorry, they came in 10 days after the year started. The years start, the calendar was changed in Exodus 12. The head of the year is the month Nisan. So Nisan 1, month 1, day 1. They came into the promised land on the 10th day of the first month. So 10 days after the start of the year means that you have to count the whole rest of that year as the first year. So you cannot just add 50 because then you'd be creating standalone years, which is not the intention of this. It's to create these periods of 7. It's always 7, 7, 7, 7, 7 ad infinitum. So in this eighth period of 7 would be the first period of 7 of the next. And so then you'd be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll make this green. And then you would basically just, this probably won't go smaller now. I made it bigger. Now it probably won't go smaller. So we'll make this blue. We will make this blue. So hopefully, by just doing something as simple and as basic as that and adding a little bit of color coding, you guys can see how this works. And that the 50th year is always going to be the first year of the next period of 7 sevens. That is how you continue this unbroken. And that is how you can, when you count this way, this is how you can validate these other Jubilee years that plot on the timeline, and how you can understand that Daniel's 70 weeks borrows from the land Sabbaths. The important thing about Daniel's 70 weeks borrowing from the land Sabbaths is that the land Sabbaths have a one-time benchmark event starting point. And so from that time when they come into the land, which is the fulfillment of the command, the Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. Sabbath is periods of 7. So he says, 6 years sow thy field, prune thy vineyard. The 7th year is a year of rest. And then he says, Thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee. 7 times 7 years. This is 7 weeks of years. 1 week is 7 years, 7 weeks of years. Now, tying Daniel's prophecy into this, you know you're supposed to, because there is a command, a legal command. Well, Daniel was under the Mosaic law when he received his week's prophecy and when he was prophesying about them. He specifically uses language to tell you he is tying his 70 weeks prophecy to Leviticus 25's weeks of years, which is how you know it's the 7s and not the 50s that are important. It's another way of knowing. Again, the Bible is a great double check system. Once you understand that it double checks itself and that there's pattern repetition, you can more easily identify these things. But Daniel specifically tells you that he's pulling from Leviticus 25's weeks of years, a couple of different ways. But the most specific one is thus. Daniel 9:20. Daniel 9:25. I'm like, where does he say it? Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. I don't know how many times I have been asked over the course of the years I've been studying this. Why are there 2 separate time periods called out? What happened at the end of the first period of 7 weeks? Because he says there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Why did he not just say 69? If you are intended to understand that it is continuous, which it is, why did he call out 7 weeks and 62 weeks? Because there is a legal command in Leviticus 25:8 to number 7 sevens, 7 weeks. Daniel's telling you that he's using Leviticus 25's weeks of years, which have a Nisan 10 starting point, when he says 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Leviticus 25:8 says, Thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 weeks. So this is one of the ways in which you know that Daniel is borrowing from Leviticus 25 in his week's prophecy. They are land Sabbaths. Now, because he's borrowing from the weeks of years, and it's based on the periods of 7 weeks and 62 weeks, they're weeks of years. There's no extra 50th year in there anywhere. And if there was, it would throw off his prophecy like nobody's business. This is a double check. When you understand that Daniel 9 is using the same thing as Leviticus 25 is, you can validate the correct way to count. This is the correct way to count. The 50th year is not an extra standalone year. The Dead Sea Scroll calendar says that it is. Guess what, guys? That's not a biblical calendar. So I don't frankly care what it says, and anyone who's using it is probably going to not get the right answer because 2025 identifiably is not a Jubilee year. We are already past the point where it could have been relevant. It's not. So even though people use that calendar, I will say this is one of the things that happened earlier this year when people got into this periods of 50 or cycle of 50. It is not the 50s that are important. It is the sevens. And when we understand that, and we understand that Daniel's borrowing from them, and we understand that it must be counted a specific way in order that other Jubilee years can fall on the correct timeline, we have our double check system. This is one of the things, like I said, the Bible will tell you exactly what it means and it will validate itself. We just have to keep reading it and keep letting it. So the starting point, when ye shall come into the land that I shall give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. Okay, when did they come into the land? Joshua 4:19. And the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. Okay, so that identifiably tells you when the count, when anything pertaining to weeks of years and anything pertaining to Jubilee years, because Jubilee years are just the first year of the next period of 7. So this is like your New Year's Day. Does it matter what year you're in? Is New Year's Day always the same? This is one of the major sticking points of people as they think that the 50th year has a different starting point. So we'll get to that in a moment. But when we use common logic and we say, okay, is it the first year, the 25th year, the 50th year, the 75th year, the 100th year? Does it matter? Is New Year's Day always the same? And the answer to that would be yes. It is always the same, regardless of what year you are in. This is no different. Because we are accurately placing the 50th year as the first year of the next period of 7 sevens, and it is part of a continuous, unbroken cycle. There would never be a time where any of the years, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 14th, 80th, whatever, would have a different start date than Nisan 10. I realize that there are people who have an issue with this because of Leviticus 25:9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here and I'm going to ask for questions. The next thing we will discuss is Leviticus 25:9 and put that in its proper spot. So what do you guys have for me so far? Other than that I had a black screen. Whoopsie. What you got? I will go back and see if I missed anything. Yeah, this is just, my live stream is not, I'm going to stop sharing screen for a moment. Maybe that'll help. Oh, and it did. Okay, that's probably part of the thing. My computer has to think too hard. All right. Hi, Jessica. Okay, there's nothing else in here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the word study part. So we got a couple of things out of the way that are important. Let's go to the Leviticus 25:9. This is the easiest clarification I'm going to make tonight, and yet it is the most difficult for people to get. So I need to open a window first. Where do I want to go? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. My suggestions for reference websites, Bible Hub and studylight.org. Please let me know if you guys can see this. Apparently there are ads here. Even though I pay a fee for there to not be ads, there are still ads. Imagine that. Okay, thank you. Woohoo. Hi, Matt. I don't think I have seen your name yet. Okay, let me get rid of this. Are we good on this whole 49 thing before I get rid of this? Are there any questions? I know I just asked, but are we good with that? With how to count? Are there any questions at all? No, yes. Okay, cool. So we're going to close that. And this is this is honestly like again, one of the easiest things to dispel and one of the things that I am certain that people do not do. Remember when I did the video and I just did a post and recapping my Bible study tips. Number 2, the Bible was not written in English. It was written in Hebrew, Old Testament, Greek, New Testament. And so in order to ensure that we are understanding a proper English reading of the text, we need to go back to the original language. Now, I realize that there is going to be a predisposition to just take it at face value, unless there's something that's super tricky wording wise to where you'd be like, what does that mean? But like if it's readable, people are probably less inclined to think that there is a need to go back to the original language and validate, look up word meanings. You know, again, we go back to the simplicity that is the word know, K-N-O-W. Everyone who speaks English knows what the word know means. And yet, Matthew 24:36 and Acts 1:7, of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. And it is not for you to know the times and the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. Those are 2 separate Greek words. They are not the same, and both have different contexts and connotations. But you wouldn't know that if you don't go look it up. But people assume because there is a general, commonly understood, very easily understood meaning to the word know, K-N-O-W, why do I need to go look it up? The same premise applies here. I can read Leviticus 25:9, and I can see that the word Jubilee is written in the verse. Thou shalt cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month in the day of atonement. You shall make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. I can read that the word Jubilee is in that verse, and yet I would never know that it's not actually there if I didn't go look it up. By show of hands, how many of you guys did not know prior to me stating it 3 seconds ago that the word Jubilee is not actually in the original text of Leviticus 25:9, in the original Hebrew text? How many of you did not know that? How many of you are hearing this for the first time? I hope 0. I hope 100% of you already knew this. I'm going to prove this to you because, hey, it's right there. Right? Thou shalt cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month in the day of atonement. You shall make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. We're going to look at, I am not a fan of how my computer is working right now. And the unfortunate part of this is I restarted it like 3 times today just to make sure. All right, Jubilee. Jubilee. What I have is an interlinear study. So it's going to give me the Hebrew word from right here in the English. If I click on it, it's going to give me the Hebrew word down here. And the RAH is the Greek. So what this does is it gives me both the Hebrew translation and the Greek translation. And the Greek translation is going to tell me where in the New Testament I can find that word. But what I would like to point out is the word Jubilee here is actually in the Hebrew text, the word teruah. All of you are supposed to understand of this verse is that they are supposed to blow a trumpet on the Day of Atonement. The word Jubilee is not technically in the original Hebrew text of Leviticus 25:9. I feel like this is one of those things that Satan probably laughs at because 100% of people can go look it up and do a word study. I'm doing interlinear because I want to show you some concepts, how they translate from the Old Testament into the New Testament, specifically around the concept of redemption, liberty and redemption. So that's why I'm using this, is so that we can pinpoint concepts between this chapter and the New Testament. So that's why I'm doing this. But what I want to do is just point out further that in the next verse, where the Jubilee year actually starts, Leviticus 25:10, when we do our Greek rendering thing here again, right here, Jubilee. It is not the word teruah, it is the word yaubel. The correct Hebrew word for Jubilee as it pertains to Jubilee years is yobel. In Leviticus 25:9, that word is absent. It is not there. It was written into the text by the writers of the King James. And aside from, I want to say, 2 other translations, you will not, outside of the King James, see the word Jubilee written in Leviticus 25:9. So if you use, say, the NLT or the NIV or the ESV, it will not be there. It's not supposed to be. While I understand, I use it myself. And while I understand that it's great for studying, and there's a lot of people who like the KJV, this is one of those things where if you do not check the original language, you are going to get it wrong because you're going to make an assumption and a valid, it's not an invalid assumption. It's right there in the text. So if you're just reading it, there would be absolutely no reason to suspect that it's not in the original Hebrew language. It is not. It is not. So this is one of those things where, because it's so ingrained in people, it's very difficult to strike it from the record. It's like once you've seen it, you can't, it's very, very difficult. I get it. I was there, thought this for a long time. One of those things where it's like, nope, let's just go see. It's not actually there. Not actually there at all. And this is the foundation of what so many people believe about Jubilee years and Tishri 10. This is a fight. This is a fight that I have had for years because it just is very, very difficult to get people out of this mentality. That's why I started with the starting point and making sure that we understand that it's not periods of 50 and it's not a standalone year. It's the first year and the next period of 7 sevens, and it is a continuous, unbroken pattern. And if year 1 and year 7 and year 8, which is year 1, year 50, year 100, whatever, your New Year's Day doesn't ever change, regardless of what year you're in. Your New Year's Day is always your New Year's Day. Because the when you shall come into your land, the command to start the count that leads to the declaration of the Jubilee year in that 50th year, which is the first year of the next 7 sevens, because there is a one-time benchmark event, the declaration of the new year, regardless of which year it is in these periods of 7 sevens or the 50th or whatever, they're always going to be Nisan time. That is never going to change. It's never going to change. But one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand, that they are aware of, is that the word, I'm not even sharing the right, I'm not even sharing the right one. Sorry. I've been talking. Can you guys see that? I have too many tabs open and these ads are driving me crazy. Let me know if you guys can see this page that has Leviticus 25:10 on it. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, this is what happens when I just go fly by the seat of my pants, right? Leviticus 25:10, the word Jubilee is Yobel. Okay? In Leviticus 25:9, we'll bring this up since I'm on the right tab. The word Jubilee is teruah, like as in Yom Teruah. It's the day of blowing. It's not even blowing of trumpets, technically. It's just the day of blowing. Yes, you blow trumpets on Yom Teruah. And this would have already been a thing that they would have known, because Leviticus 23 is where this command is given. Leviticus 23:23. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, ye shall have a Sabbath, a memorial of the blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. The word teruah is blowing, the day of blowing. Yom Teruah is the day of blowing of trumpets. So in Leviticus 25:9, all we are intended to understand is that there was a command to also blow a trumpet on the Day of Atonement. That's all we are intended to understand. There is no beginning of a Jubilee year. There is nothing to do with a Jubilee year. It is simply the blowing of a trumpet. Now, what I will say is that there is a logical reason. If it only means blowing a trumpet, why was it put in Leviticus 25, which is a Jubilee year chapter? Because it does relate to the concept of Jubilee, but it does not relate to the Jubilee year. And these are two things that we need to also separate, is that there is a concept of Jubilee and there is a Jubilee year. So when you're talking about end times events and kinsman redemption and the starting point of account and how many Jubilee years there are from the beginning to the ending, you're talking about Jubilee years being specifically relevant. But when you're talking about the concept of Jubilee, how it translates from the Old Testament to the New Testament, that's different. And that's not going to be tied to a Jubilee year. Now, Leviticus 25:9 isolates the Day of Atonement as some kind of special thing. It is not the beginning of weeks of years or Jubilee years, but it does have a bearing in two specific ways. And so I'm going to show you this word study. So Leviticus 25:10 is where I want to focus here. Ye shall hallow the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. Ye shall return every man unto his possession. Ye shall return every man unto his family. So in the Jubilee year, it is liberty. Liberty. It's the Hebrew word deror, and it translates to the Greek word aphesis. Now, what I want to do, and the purpose of the interlinear study, is I want to say, okay, that there's this concept of liberty that's tied to Jubilee years, but specifically that's tied to the proclamation of Jubilee. And there is a counterpart in the New Testament. So I want to know what the Old Testament liberty deror is in the New Testament Greek aphesis. It's G859. So this is where I'm going to go to Blue Letter Bible, G859. And this is going to tell me all the times in the New Testament where that Greek word aphesis is mentioned. So I'm going to, it's not letting me enlarge. Oh, it is maybe letting me enlarge my screen. I don't know. Anyway, Matthew 26:28, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. Okay. Mark 1:4, John did baptize in the wilderness and preached the baptism of repentance for the remission of sins. Mark 3, it's forgiveness, remission. Luke 4:18 is where we're actually coming to the point here. When you translate the concept, not the Jubilee year aspect, but the concept of liberty declared tied to Jubilee, it's remission of sins. It's setting people at liberty. It's remitting sins. Luke 4:18. After Jesus was baptized. Hopefully you guys know that the end of Jesus's ministry was on Nisan 10, triumphal entry, Palm Sunday. Is how we know one of the double check systems. Remember, I talked earlier about how it's the periods of 7 and not the periods of 50, and how the one-time benchmark event starting point, Nisan 10, when they come into their land, is important because Daniel's weeks of years borrows from that. So you would assume correctly that the Nissan 10 date factors in there as well. Yes, Nissan 10 was the unto the Messiah, the Prince. When he says, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again in the wall, even in troublous times. Yes, the unto the Messiah, the Prince is Nissan 10 Palm Sunday. So this is how all of these things interplay with one another. Now, also remember, or know if you did not know, that Daniel's 70 weeks are counted in 360-day years. So if you're talking about a 360-day year, Nisan 10 being the end, minus 3.5 years is Tishri 10 as the beginning. Tishri 10. Thou shalt cause the trump of the Jubilee to sound, or the trump of blowing to sound. On the 10th day of the 7th month, in the day of atonement, you shall make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. Can you guys tell me what the trumpet in the New Testament is related to? Anyone? Anyone? It's the voice of Jesus. Leviticus 25:9 is telling you that Jesus is going to start giving with his voice, God's word. The trumpet, no, it's the trump is the voice of Jesus. Twice in Revelation, we're told this. In Revelation 1, John is hearing a great voices of a trumpet talking with him. He turns around and sees the glorified Christ. And then in Revelation 4:1, there was a door open in heaven, and behold, sorry, you threw me off with the whole God's word thing. After this, I looked, and behold, the door was open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, saying, come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. When you're talking about symbolic language or something that foreshadows the person of Christ, which the law did, Leviticus is part of the law. So it's going to be part of the corporate foreshadow that is the body of Christ. In, Colossians and Hebrews, it says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath. There is shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. When you look at the law as a corporate foreshadow of the body of Christ, the person of Christ written into the law, and you said, okay, you're supposed to blow a trumpet on a day, it's going to be forward looking to the one who has the voice of the trumpet doing something on that day with said voice. Hebrews 1 is the best. The other sister passage to Colossians 2:16 and 17 is Hebrews 10:1. The law having a shadow of good things to come, but not the very image of those things. The image is the body of Christ. So Leviticus 25 is forward looking to the Jubilee that Christ would declare with his voice. And specifically that occurred on the Day of Atonement, Tishri 10, which is what Luke 14 tells us. But the Hebrews 1 reference to the voice of God. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, the trump of God, incarnated on earth, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, and by whom also he made the worlds. So you're talking about the Leviticus 25:9 being a foreshadow of the time when the voice of God, the trump of God, Jesus, who is the trump of God, would speak. And what would he do? Declare Jubilee. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. When did the Spirit of the Lord descend and rest upon him? At his baptism, which occurred to begin his ministry. And if it ended on Nisan 10, minus the 3.5 years on a 360-day calendar, began on Tishri 10. So the Spirit descended upon him and abode upon him like a dove, declaring him fit for ministry. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased, on Tishri 10. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, the recovering of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Leviticus 25:9 does not contain the word Jubilee. There is a command to blow a trumpet on the Day of Atonement. And that was forward looking to the time when Christ would sound his own voice. And yes, that is tied to the concept of liberty, which is tied to the concept of Jubilee, but it is not tied to a Jubilee year. When you plot out the Jubilee years, they have nothing to do with the ministry of Christ. But this is the concept of Jubilee, which is liberty, the proclamation of liberty on the Day of Atonement. This could be done because Christ became the scapegoat. He became the substitutionary sin bearer, which is what his baptism did. That is a Leviticus 16 concept tied also to the Day of Atonement. So he became the scapegoat, the substitutionary sin bearer, and as a result, granted people liberty from their sins, liberty via the forgiveness of sins. What we understand of Leviticus 25's liberty proclaimed in a Jubilee year, setting the captives free, is Jesus coming to do the same. That is what his ministry served to do. So from the beginning of his ministry to the end of it, the whole purpose was to preach the acceptable year of the Lord, to preach the kingdom of heaven is at hand, forward looking to the offering of said kingdom, which they rejected. And he gave his life a ransom for many. What I would like to go back to is Study Light. And I think it's the concept of paid. So maybe I need to stop share this and find it first. Oh, I probably forgot where it was. And now I'm going to have a tough time remembering on the fly. Please hold. I think I found it. Okay. Yes. I'll share this again. Okay, let me know if you guys can see that. We're back to Leviticus 25. And so I want to go through the whole idea of paying for redemption and how this translates to liberty. So let me know if you guys can see that. Please and thank you. Hi, Jason. Hi, Jessica, if I didn't say hi. Okay, thank you, Matt. All right, so Leviticus 25:2 says the following. 25:52 rather. And if there remain but a few years unto the year of Jubilee, then he shall count with him, and according to his years he shall give him the price of his redemption. So this word isn't actually selectable, but down here it is, which is weird. So in the Greek, it's the Greek word litron, which is the price of redeeming or a ransom. So it's the Greek word G3083. So the price what is the price paid for ransom? Matthew 20:28. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. Mark 10:15. Gosh. Numbers are hard. My brain's just like trying to reverse them all. Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. The payment for your liberty is the blood of Christ. That is how all of this translates from the Old Testament, Leviticus 25, into the New Testament. It's got nothing to do specifically with Jubilee years. It's tied to the concept of liberty and how that actually is gained. It's through the blood of Christ. first as a substitutionary sin bearer, and then as the trump of God proclaiming liberty, and then ultimately dying in payment for those transgressions. And so this is why when we go to Trusty Bible Gateway in Revelation 5, you see the elders in the throne room singing a song. They sung a new song, saying, "Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain." Yes, he gave his life a ransom for many, and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood. Out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on earth. So when you're talking about the concept of Leviticus 25, there's a few things in play. First of all, when you're talking about Leviticus 25 on the whole, there's a few things in play. First and foremost is the starting point and the methodology for counting. It is by sevens. It is not the 50s that are important. It is the sevens. And we understand this more fully when we understand that Daniel's prophecy borrows from the periods of 7. And if you added extra years for the 50s, it would not work. And if you added extra years for the 50s, the other Jubilee years that plot on the timeline would also not work. Anyone who takes the time to actually plot that out is going to realize very quickly there is one correct way of doing that, and it is plus or minus 49 to get to the 50th, because you always have to count the year that you are in. Leviticus 25:9 has not one thing to do with Jubilee years. It is conceptually tied to the beginning of Jesus' ministry, where the Spirit anointed him to proclaim liberty via the forgiveness of sins, which is conceptually what liberty in the Old Testament during the Jubilee year translates to in the New Testament, is liberty via the forgiveness of sin. And that goes to him giving his life as a ransom or a payment, the price that a kinsman redeemer would pay in the Jubilee year for the freedom of someone else. Again, that's tied to Leviticus 25:52. And if they remain but a few years unto the year of the Jubilee, then he shall count with him, and according to his years shall he give him again the price of his redemption. So you're talking about technically the bride price. The price that Christ paid for your hand in marriage is the same price that somebody would pay for someone's freedom in the Jubilee year. Except what Christ did was not in the Jubilee year. It was a more broader, all-encompassing concept of liberty via the forgiveness of sin and freedom from bondage, freedom from the law and sin and death by grace through faith in the finished work of Christ on the cross. And so this brings us into the concept of kinsman redemption. And I'm going to end with this here. So we're going to talk about this redeemed here in Revelation 5. Thou hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred, tongue, and people and nation. That's not just talking about spiritual redemption, that's talking about physical redemption as well. And so I'm going to stop sharing this and find where I need to go. Please hold, because my pages work a lot better when I'm not sharing them. Where do I want to go? Bible Hub. Let's try here first. Bible Hub, Revelation 5:9. I just don't want to confuse you guys by not being in the right spot and having to go other places. Okay. Hi, Rob. All right. More screen share to end this live stream. And let me know when you guys can see that, if you would be so kind, please, and thank you. Hey, Mr. HVAC guy. Well, let me just take a few minutes and catch you up to speed. No, I'm just kidding. All right, thank you. So we're looking at the Greek word agorazo, egorasis, whatever. It means to buy in the marketplace, to purchase. Thou hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. To go to the market to purchase. specifically to redeem, to buy. So this is probably my best, or my favorite rather. Right down here, agorazo. It's from the Greek word agora, or the ancient marketplace. Properly to make purchases in the marketplace, ownership transfers from seller to buyer. The first time that I ever read about this was actually on Chuck Missler's Koinonia House website. And he explained it a way that I just remembered and really liked. But it's all rights pass at the point of redemption. When Christ comes to get his church, he is physically removing them from out of the marketplace. So this isn't just a spiritual transaction. That's what justification is. And you receive the Holy Spirit and he sets you apart for the day when Jesus is going to physically purchase you from out of the marketplace. He is going to come and physically take you away. Like someone who goes to a marketplace does, is they pick up something and they exchange money, and all rights pass permanently from buyer, or from seller to buyer. So he owns that. This is what he's doing, is he's coming to get his purchased possession. You are already blood bought. He already paid the price for your hand in marriage and you agreed to it. At the betrothal stage, that's called justification. And when you receive the Spirit, that's a down payment or a token on this day of redemption. It seals you for, sets you apart for the time when Christ physically returns to take you physically, because you are his purchased possessions. He bought you with his blood, that ransom that he paid for many. This is my favorite way of looking at this, is all rights permanently pass from seller to buyer at the point of justification. He bought you. My favorite verse ever to describe this is 1 Corinthians 6:19. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own, for you were bought with a price. Correct. When you're talking about the ancient Jewish wedding ceremony typology, you're talking about understanding that the betrothal is the agreement to terms and your acceptance of the bride price, the price that Christ agreed to pay for your hand in marriage. You are accepting his terms, and his terms say, I bought you. I substituted my life in place of yours. That is what the betrothal is. That's what justification is. And the gifts portion of the new covenant is the sealing of the Spirit. Again, this is what 1 Corinthians 6:19 tells us. Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you? It's the gifts portion of the new covenant, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own. You're bought with a price. Yes, all rights permanently passed from seller to buyer, from this world to Christ. You were bought out of the world when you agreed. When you profess faith in the finished work of Christ on the cross, his ransom, his bride price paid for you, and you were irrevocably sealed with the Spirit. Forward looking to the day when he's going to physically come and take you out of here, as one does with their purchased property. So he has already bought you. He just hasn't come to get you yet. That is what the rapture of the church is Christ returning to redeem, to take his physical property. And that is what Revelation 5 shows you, is his physical property is sitting with him in the throne room. He came to get it. That's what you're waiting for here. So this is honestly like my favorite way of talking about redemption, is the finality of the transfer of ownership. It occurred at the point of justification, but it manifests at the point of glorification, which is tied to the redemption of the purchased possession, which is tied to the process of glorification, which you all familiarly know as the rapture of the church. And that is what Revelation 5 is all about. Embodied in this concept of redemption is the physical, is why I call it repossession. He's coming to repossess his physical property. Like, we think that we have so much control over our choices, and we can go or we cannot go. You're not yours, you're his. He's coming to repossess his physical property, like it or not. That is what the rapture of the church is. So you can call it the day of redemption, the day of glorification, the marriage of the Lamb. You can call it whatever you want. But it's fun to call it the repossession of God's physical property. Because do you have a choice when someone comes to repossess your car? No, actually, you don't. And so that's honestly why it's so fun for me to call it that, because it takes away any idea that we might have that we have a choice in that matter. You don't, because you're not yours, you're his. He bought you, he owns you, and he's coming to get you. And that evidence of that will be seen in the throne room in heaven in Revelation 5, which is prior to the opening of the seals. So I'm not going to get into a timeline for that, other than obviously before the seals are open. But I wanted to spend some time talking about some concepts as they relate to Leviticus 25 and how we see them manifest in concept in other places. Talk about the legal versus prophetic, things like that, and make sure that we have a better understanding of what that chapter represents, both in legal ramification for Israel, and then in concept of what Christ did and what that affords us in the future, and how you can see that play out in prophecy in the future. So, having said that, I don't see any questions. But so I will just say thank you all for being here. For those of you who are in chat, and thanks for helping me with my my black screen and letting me know when you guys could see stuff. If you have any other questions, let me know. This is it's deep. It's meaningful. It's not going to be like show me one verse where it says this. But I will say, for those of you who heard the first time tonight that Leviticus 25:9 does not actually have the word jubilee in there, I would encourage you to use this as a proof text to make sure that you are not assuming things that aren't actually true just because you read it in a verse, or there's a common meaning attributed or something like that. It does not take long to look up the meaning of words, to validate, trust but verify, or don't trust and just verify. But this is one of the reasons I say King James is great, but it's not infallible. It is not infallible. So I use it. Clearly, I use it. It's good, but it's not perfect. And so we do ourselves a disservice when we don't investigate things to make sure that we understand them correctly. That is all. All right, you guys have a good night. Thanks again for being here. And to those of you who are watching after the fact, take care. I will see you later.